Hello, how are you doing? I hope that you continue keeping safe. Welcome to another episode of Your Voice. And today we are recording from Nayeche Studios in Kileleshwa, Nairobi. And today we are decoding feminism. You know, when you hear the word feminism, a woman comes to mind. But today we have a man who believes in feminism. His name is Mustapha Dumbuya. He is a journalist and a journalism trainer at Journalists for Human Rights. Welcome so much into the show. My name is Kawira Rose. This is Your Voice.
This is Your Voice.
So welcome so much into the show, Mustapha. And today we are talking about feminism. And I know it's very interesting to our viewers because, as I said when I was starting, you know, when we hear feminism, it's just a woman comes to mind. This is a woman thing. So if we could just start from your own perspective, what is feminism? Let's start from there. Let us understand what feminism is.
Thank you for that. I mean, feminism to me, in the basics of terms, describes the equalities of the genders. It promotes gender equality. It speaks about the importance for societies to work together, for people to put effort, to invest in creating a fairer world for the genders. And I will focus here on men and women in this context that we're speaking in. So that's what feminism is. And I know there are a lot of other interpretations out there, and you know, because the word itself could be very loaded. It could be highly politically loaded about what it means. But feminism, irrespective of whatever definition or interpretation that you have for it, from my perspective, it speaks about the equalities of genders.
Both genders, male and female?
Both genders, male and female, for this context. Because when we speak about gender as well today, we have to be quite nuanced about it, because there is more out there. Right? We have the LGBTQI communities. So there are many different genders out there. But for the context that you were speaking to me about now, we're talking about male and female. Yeah.
So if we look at the word feminism, you could agree with me that many people actually argue that the word is biased, because when you hear the word feminism, it's feminine. You know, a woman comes in mind. So I've talked to a lot of men, and they're telling me that, Rose, you know, the word is biased. Why can't you just say human rights? Why do you have to say feminism? What do you have to say about that, Mustapha?
It's an interesting, perspective, right? And I will not wrong people who, who think so. And that's why initially I talked about sometimes what could be political, and also some people could weaponize concepts as well, right? So feminism, and I would just like to answer to your question with paraphrasing a quote from Chimamanda Ngozi, right? We all know Chimamanda, the Nigerian writer, who also is a renowned feminist. And basically what Chimamanda talks about, the word feminism, and why don't we just say human rights? Chimamanda is only saying here, well, feminism is an offshoot of human rights. But the reason why people are specific with feminism, it is to draw attention to a specific gender that has been marginalized, right? That has suffered inequality. So yes, otherwise we can as well say human rights, which covers everyone. But feminism in this instance is drawing attention to correct a wrong, or to right a wrong, to ensure that society, people's attention are drawn to the marginalization of women, and then work towards creating a better society for both genders, for just creating a fairer society. So that's my answer to it. I can't dismiss the point about why don't we just call it human rights. We can call it human rights, it covers everyone, but that doesn't address the problem. And the problem we have here is, for so long we've had an unequal society which is highly patriarchal. And we know what that means. What patriarchy has done to the society. It has created a system that gives men an undue advantage.
So you agree that the word is biased because in this context we are trying to, shift our minds towards one agenda that has been for the longest time possible, being marginalized, right?
If I call it bias, I would say maybe it's a positive bias. But in this instance, what it really is, feminism is saying, is that we need an equal society.
Wow.
We need a society where the girl and the boy must be able to go to school. Families must not hold back their daughters at home. It sounds ridiculous, but this still happens in certain cultures, in certain societies, where even today as we speak, boys are being privatized for education. What basically that does is it robs off girls the opportunity to go to school, to get an education. And we know what it means to get an education. Education is empowering.
True.
It empowers you. When you missed out in education, we also know what that means. Right? It also limits your opportunities in the future. So for so long, this is the kind of society that has been created. So this is something that a concept like feminism is saying, hello, hang on, wait. Why can't we just create a society where both boys and girls can go to school? That is equality. Why don't we create a society where you cannot be discriminated just because of your gender?
True.
You should be able to get the same job. Or why don't we create a society where women and men must be employed, must be given opportunities based on their competence, not based on their gender? Why can't women and men have equal pay for a job they do?
True.
Sometimes that women could even do better, but they get less pay.
Yeah.
So these are I'm just giving examples, and there are so many of these examples out there, from the basic, from the households to the community, to the society, to the national government,
to the work environment,
to the work environment, and that's what feminism talks about. It's basically saying, let us create society right from the home, with the parents. How do we educate our girls? How do we socialize girls? How do we socialize boys?
Okay. Thank you so much, Mustapha. And when I'm thinking about the word feminism, I'm just looking, I'm just thinking maybe 10 years from now, what if we'll have accomplished that kind of balance? What if we'll come to a point where now women are in the lead, women are now given these opportunities that you're talking about? Will we have to change the name to masculinity? What do you think? Because when I talk about the name, I know my fellow counterparts, my men colleagues will argue with me and tell me, see, look at this, Rose, if you say that the right word is feminism, will we have to change the word once we come to a time where now men are the ones who are not given the same opportunities?
Well, I crave for a world like that you've just described. A world where women and men will have equal opportunities. And you've even gone as far as saying women will surpass. But while that will be the ambition, while that will be the dream that we want to have an equal world, we also have to be very realistic about the realities that we have, about the structural realities that we have, that we still have a long way to achieve that. And that's why we must not, dismiss concepts and ideas like the one that we're talking about now, which is feminism. A concept and ideas that talks about the equalities of the genders. So we still have a long way to really get there. And we could see this in our everyday lives, in our homes. From our homes, we saw what happens in our homes. We saw what boys did. Even the separation of duties, even duties at home, chores at home, are being gender desegregated.
I know that's a very critical area that I know it's going to be a heated conversation, because someone will argue that Mustapha, I'm a man, I can't cook, I'm a woman, I should not provide. For the longest time in our African culture, I know there's a way that feminism is related to culture, and you even talk about house chores. For example, Mustapha, do you believe in this kind of, the one that now when you are at home, you are the one who's supposed to do this, you are the one who's supposed to do this? Do you think that when you talk about inequality, does it come down to these home chores, or these are just some other things we should put aside? Please, when you go home, you are a woman, please go to the kitchen and cook. You are a man, sit on the sofa, watch television and wait for your wife to bring you food on the table.
Well, we can't dismiss the role that the home plays. Remember, we say charity begins at home. And some of the problems that we face as a society today actually originate from the home. It starts with our families. It starts with the way we've been raised up. And you can't really, it's hard to adopt new concepts once you are an adult. You know what they say, you can't give an old dog a new name.
True.
So it starts right from the homes. The oppression of women, actually really the origin of it is from the home. It is at the home that women are being taught to behave, to socialize in certain ways, in certain homes. And we say we label this as a culture, as a tradition, that women must cook, that boys must be out playing football with their friends while their sisters are doing the home chores. And we know, and if we just go into the details of the impact of that on girls, it's immense, it's huge. Because what happens is, while the boy play football, having recreational opportunities to play, to refresh the mind, the girl is busy doing chores, washing dishes, helping out with cooking. In the communities, in the villages, that will basically means, the girls will have to be the one to chop the greens. They will have to do a lot of work. And by the time they finish or they complete their home chores, they still have to do their assignments, their homework from school. And sometimes they don't really have enough time left to do their homework. Or probably they will turn in their homework and they didn't give it their best. While the boys have all the time in the world
to do it.
to
So this
do their
comes
homework.
down to even the performance.
So it's already going to affect the performance of girls in school, because they are being engaged to do too much, while they could have actually shared those responsibilities with their brothers.
I agree.
And and you have a similar scenario where probably maybe the father of the home, that we call the breadwinner, even the concept today has changed, because I know many homes that women are the breadwinners of.
True.
Right? So I think we cannot really underestimate the role that the home plays. And that is where it actually starts. That is where it begins.
This is where we should start making the change.
This is where the change starts. It's about the way we socialize boys and girls when they're growing up.
Wow.
And that's
true.
And that foundation, to a very large extent, will shape their worldview.
Wow.
Will shape their outlook.
True.
Will shape the way they see women. Which for girls, that will shape their perspective, their notion of their role and their place in society.
Wow, I totally agree with you. I was actually having a conversation with a young man the other day, and he was telling me, Rose, no, I have never seen my father cook. No, I've never seen my father, doing laundry. I cannot do that. That's not how I was brought up. So I agree with you that this has to come from there at the beginning, at the home. We need to start socializing our boys and girls in a totally different way, compared to how we've been doing it. So Mustapha, I know this, we could talk about home chores for the longest time ever. So let's go to the myths and misconceptions around feminism. There are so many people who, when you hear feminism, there are so many people will come with their own definitions. First of all, is feminism really a woman thing? Let's start from there, because most of us know that feminism is about women, fighting for their rights. Yeah, which it is, but feminism also covers both rights, as we started defining feminism.
So, I would just say it's not a woman thing. It is everyone's business. What feminism tells you is it aspires, it pushes for the equality of men and women. And if you are a believer, if you believe in equality, if you believe that you must not be given certain privileges just because you're a man, then you are a feminist. So this is where I would call myself a feminist, okay, or an ally at least, because there are so many, there is also a lot of debates out there whether men could actually really be feminists. But that is a debate, that's a discussion for another day. But what I will tell you is that feminism is not a woman thing, and when we reduce it to that, it's problematic, because then what happens then is that some men, without investing to find out more about what this truly means, they shy away from it. They say,
this is a woman
this
thing.
Is a woman.
It's not my thing.
This is a woman thing. I should not even be interested in
True.
it. But again, some men, I know I have friends friends and people in my family and people that I know that are already feminists without calling themselves so. So even if you just forget about the term, there are so many men who believe in equality.
Yeah.
There are so many men actually who don't just believe in it, but they're actually doing something. Their actions, they're doing something to promote it. They're working towards creating an equal world. So these are, whether you call yourself a feminist or not, but that is it. But again, as I said earlier, concepts and terminologies like this sometimes could be political. And then for some people, could even weaponize it, to use it, to fight. Wow. So the whole point is, even if we just take away the concept, the term, we talk about the actions. Then what essentially means then is, it talks about equality of the genders of everyone.
Yeah.
And when we talk about this, we talked earlier about the homes, about how we were raised up, how we were socialized.
True.
But then again, it transcends that. It goes on to the extent of actually now looking at the society that we live in, about government, about corporations, institutions, about policies in these institutions. Because we definitely know we have certain institutions that are not gender sensitive. True. That do not have policies that create equality, that discriminate women. We could speak about the media, which we are both part of.
Yeah.
We know what happens in many newsrooms, right?
Male-dominated up to date.
We know the newsrooms to a very large extent. Many of them, it's universal. It's not just it's just not an African thing. It's universal. In so many places, it's still male-dominated.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to decision making, at that level, it is still men who make the decisions. Okay. So sometimes you get men making decisions on issues that do not affect them, that they do not understand much about. So when you're talking about being a feminist, I think this is where it comes from. It is for me as a man, for instance, it's about understanding my position in society. It's about understanding my privileges.
Your actions.
It's about understanding my privileges as a man, right? That as a man, I could wake up in the morning, I could go to work, and I could do so many other things without being harassed much compared to my female colleague, who might, be harassed, who might be called names, who might be touched, who might be touched inappropriately. So it's about foremost understanding the privileges that we have. So once we start understanding these privileges, we understand the society that we live in, then we will start to do something to change this. And before I just end this, what feminism is and what it's not. And it's not about men against women.
That's also another area that
because I've seen a lot of this, especially on social media, about people who try to speak about this, and they're reducing the conversation to men and versus women.
The other day when we had this case of a young woman being thrown from a high place, and there was a lot of conversation around it, men against women. And as we just hold on that point, Mustapha, I'm thinking, when we talk about these organizations that they fight, they fight inequality, the feminists, if I may call them. Someone was again talking to me, because I love interactions, because the more you interact with people, then you can now understand how the situation it is at the ground. You find that there are other men actually who also their rights are violated, but you don't see feminists coming with the same energy to fight for the rights that have been violated when it comes to men, So I was going through some social media platform, and I realized that there's another man who was killed by his girlfriend. So you can realize that these such cases, feminists don't come in with so much energy to fight for men's rights. So I don't know how that you think about that kind of a situation, because when it comes to a woman's issue, then feminists will come in and really protest and fight for the rights. But when it's a man's case, then the energy is not as much.
I don't like to speak more about these issues on a binary, from a binary lens, right? It's either this or that. It's black or white. It's not. It's usually much more complex and nuanced than this. And I also don't agree that women don't stand up to support men's rights. I mean, I will use the Black Lives Matter as an example. the Black Lives Matter, which was started in the United States, but then it spread across the world, and I'm sure even in Kenya, in other Africa countries, women came out to protest against police brutality. Police brutality against who? It mostly affecting black men.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
Black police brutality in America and other parts of the world usually really affects men more. But when the Black Lives Matter started, actually women were leading the Black Lives Matter struggle. And so you cannot tell me then that women are not coming out to support men's rights. Because women are coming out, women are campaigning against, police brutality. They're agitating against police brutality. So so that is just not true.
That's not true.
Yeah.
So women are actually coming out to speak, about men's rights, right?
Yes.
So even as we talk about myths and misconceptions, there's someone who was talking about toxic toxic feminism. Sorry. So is there something like toxic feminism? Is there something like that you hear people saying that now this feminism is coming too much, it's becoming too much, it's becoming out of context? Do you believe that there's something called toxic feminism?
These are very politically loaded terms. But I will just tell you, for every concept, for every movement, there are always extremes. You always have extremes in every aspect of life. Religion.
Yeah.
Right? In religion, we have extremes. We have extremes in religion as well. We have extremes, people, when it comes to democracy. We have extremes in every sphere of life. So feminism, being a human concept, being a concept that we live every day, is also not devoid of people on the extreme. So that's it. We cannot just limit it to feminism. There are extremes in every sphere. There are people who take things too far, to the extreme. Right. There are people who take things to the extreme. But will we use that to judge or to dismiss a whole concept? People. But at the bottom line of feminism, it speaks about equality,
the human rights,
of women.
Wow. So these two are intertwined.
They are intertwined. But then again, and some people, when they talk about feminism, and I will not disagree, when the movement started, it pointed towards more women rights, not human rights. But today, feminism is a concept that keeps evolving. And there is more than one feminism out there.
There are so many of them.
Yes, there is more than one feminism out there. We have liberal feminists, right? We have liberal feminists who looks at the character, who believes in a much more liberal approach to feminism. And we also have radical feminists who believes that for any sustainable or meaningful change to occur, we must dismantle the male supremacy, the male dominance over things. Those are radical feminists. And I said earlier that there are different concepts out there. And there are always extremes for every concept, for every movement.
Yeah.
But we cannot use the extreme to judge the entire movement.
I totally agree with you. Now, there's a real problem in Kenya. You must agree with me, Mustapha, that feminism for the longest time has been a fight between men and women. I don't know what it is that feminists are doing wrong. Are we approaching the matter in a wrong way? What is it that we are doing to make feminism appear that, in such a way that it is now a fight between men and women? What is it that we are doing right, or what is it that we are doing wrong?
I'm not sure I have a clear answer to that question. But what I will say is, based on my own observation, based on I've been trying to follow up on the conversations on especially the social media platform. I will say some of the conversation has not been helpful, has not been really progressive, because what I've seen is it's been pitched as men versus women.
A man did this to a woman.
Yes, and a woman, so it's been men versus women. And I think that's not how we can have meaningful, progressive conversations. Right. We can't have meaningful, progressive conversations like that. Because that's what I've seen. So the concept always comes up when probably maybe there is one incident and everyone becomes interested all of a sudden on feminism, and they go to their social media
and
platform and then share their frustration. But what I think is required is a genuine investment of time on this discussion. And as a society, we must actually be invested in addressing this. And the way we address it, it starts with education, awareness. Get educated.
This is wrong.
Be aware. Learn about the different ways of how your own, your own behaviors, your own attitude, how does that affect people? How does your attitude, how does your behavior affect your female folks? I think it starts from there. But also on the other hand, and I don't want to put this responsibility, as you say, on women, because I assume when you said feminist, you're trying to say
both
women.
genders.
Feminism is not just women, and I think it's unfair to put this burden on women to say it is your duty to educate men what feminism is. I think it's the other way around. I think men, we must invest.
Feminism.
We must invest. Well, you can't embrace what you don't know. This is why I say education is important. Get educated, read, learn, engage,
create awareness
meaningfully. And then once you're able to be aware, you can engage meaningfully.
I guess you have answered my next question. I mean, what can we really do? Because most of the times, Mustapha, when there's an incident where a woman's right has been violated, you get people going viral and saying, a man has done this, or men are dogs, you've heard them saying, or men are rapists, or men. So I think the conversation that we try to have are not actually meaningful. We should be calling out the inequality. We should be calling out the wrong deeds, and not all women or men or women at large, so that we now don't have a conversation where we are pointing at each other. You men do this to us, or women do this to us. Let us acknowledge the inequality that has taken place. Okay, if it is something that has been violated, if it is a right, right to privacy, So if it's that right that has been violated, I am for the fact that let us call out that particular thing, and let's not generalize the whole situation and put it in terms of one gender against the other gender. So even as we are winding up, Mustapha, I want you to probably tell us, why is it that for the longest time ever, there are so many female feminists compared to men feminists? You have told us that you're one person who advocates for feminism, so I want to agree that you are a feminist.
I am a feminist. I would like to call myself that.
Thank you so much. So why is it that we are not getting more men on board? Why is it that for the longest time we are having only females who are advocating for these rights and not men?
It comes down to one thing, and I will tell you that: patriarchy. And I talked about what it means earlier, right? And who is the biggest beneficiary of a patriarchal system?
Men.
Okay, so it's not easy to give power away.
Wow.
Power is something that people hold, because what patriarchy does, it puts power in the hands of men mostly. Not to say, it put power in the hands of men, and it's not easy. We see how politics work. It's not easy, and it's not easy to give away power. So this is where, but even at the point to where patriarchy hurts men sometimes even more. Patriarchy is hurtful. It hurts men in so many ways, because if you just realize the way boys were raised, and this is why you have a lot of cases of maybe sometimes violence, that because men have been raised to be men. What does it mean to be a man? Say you have to be strong. You can't show emotions.
You can't cry.
You can't cry. So when things are bothering you mentally, you just try to bottle them. You cannot pour them out. You don't even speak about it. So to a point where the next move you take to express your frustration could end up becoming violent.
Wow.
Women are actually better at emotions because they've been raised to do so. When a woman is emotionally challenged, when you have some women, when they face a problem, what do? They find a bestie, they find a friend, they talk about it, they cry about it. It helps to release. It helps to release the emotions, the frustration, the stress. So patriarchy
also has negative effect on these men.
It has
as
negative effects on these
Wow.
men, but men will go all the way to keep patriarchy surviving, because patriarchy favors men. It does favor some women too, but it's a power system. It's a system. It's not an individual. Patriarchy is a system that benefits so many people along a chain line. Okay.
Wow. So what I am getting from your comment is that you know, you know, the reason why we have more feminists who are women is because men are finding it so hard to, you know, give away this power that has belonged to them for the longest time ever, right?
That's one thing, but then also that's patriarchy, right? Because that's how they've been educated. That's how they've been
That's
socialized.
how they've been brought up.
So that's why I keep emphasizing the way forward to this is education.
Education.
It's about get education.
And learning these toxic cultures.
Learn things and unlearn these things.
Wow.
Unlearn these things. Unlearn the culture that tells you that you are a man,
Okay.
so therefore you powerful. And I do agree. Men and women are not the same biologically. Right?
Biologically.
You know, even the hormones. Men have testosterone.
Yeah.
That's why we're muscular, we're stronger. So there are some differences there.
Yeah.
But what difference does that really make? That's that's the point.
Okay. So I can see we are actually running out of time. Thank you so much, Mustapha, for having time for your voice. And I think we just agree with Chimamanda that we should all be feminists. Let's all fight for our rights. Let's all fight for, let us call out these issues that are actually bringing us backwards, right? So this has been Your Voice. My name is Kawira Rose. We have been shooting live from Nyayache Studios. You can, follow them on their socials for you to book your shootings. Thank you so much again for having us. Our lives begin to end when we become silent about things that matter.
This is Your Voice.